Año Nuevo. Los mismos Extra Value Meals en McDonald's. Ahora te puedes llevar 2 snack wraps y papitas y una bebida mediana por solo $8. Solo por tiempo limitado. Precios y participación pueden variar. Los precios pueden ser más altos en Hawaii, Alaska y California y con entrega.
Good morning, Crust. It's a great day to be a bread brother.
Ugh, mornings are not my jam. Or jelly.
Oh, come on. Stop loafing around.
I just woke up feeling hollow inside.
Psst, just grab one of the new Morning Uncrustables sandwiches, like Bright-Eyed Berry or Up and Apple, filled with 12 grams of protein and tons of deliciousness. Crust, what are you eating?
It's just granola, not even yogurt.
No crust, no fuss. Uncrust your mornings.
Buckeye Talk is about to begin. Hey, 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 come on in.
Welcome back to Buckeye Talk. I am Stephen Means. That is Stefan Krajisnik, and that is Andrew Gillis. Rapid Fire Pod coming at you. It's been quite a while since we've done one of these Rapid Fire Pods, and we've done Rants Pods. Stefan, every so often, has been doing it. Hey, Stefans. So we've been getting questions from that, but we haven't really done any of these things on the pod as of late, just because there was so much happening, and it was probably a good time to just take a step back and see what our loyal texters, 2-week free trial, $3.99. After that, want us to talk about. We got stuff that's all over the place. We have some stuff on, hey man, review the portal. We've got some, can you give me some advice about getting into podcasting, which I think we're qualified to do, but maybe not. Who knows? Projecting the 2026 season, how Ryan Day goes about building his coaching staff, some miscellaneous stuff, and then some what-if questions. I always like what-if questions. I like those questions of like butterfly effect, of like, what if you had gone left instead of going right here? How much does that change? And how much can you really unpack that? So this is where we're going to start. From the 7:03, before we completely turn the page on this past season, if one of the following 3 things had happened this year, which of them would have likely resulted in Ohio State celebrating its first back-to-back championships instead of Indiana completing its historic first? And here are their options. 1, Ethan Yawa fulfills Tom Luginbill's best offensive lineman in the portal projection and is a projected late first or early second round pick in this year's draft, enabling Ohio State to not have Tegra in the starting 5 offensive line. Number 2, Jackson Corville beats out Jaden Fielding in fall camp and is honorable mention all Big Ten. And number 3, Ryan Day decides to bring in a Matt Patricia-like OC last season who has experienced NFL offensive coordinator. So basically, like, what if he'd have brought in Arthur Smith a year ago? That whether it was Arthur Smith or somebody else. And as we know, Jackson Corville, the transfer kicker that Ohio State brought in this past offseason, he did battle with Jaden Fielding during both spring and fall camp out of Ball State. He's made 50-yarders before. Maybe his ceiling was a little bit higher. This is the way I've come to understand it, but the consistency that Jaden Fielding showed throughout the offseason is why he continued to hold the job. And then you've got Ethan Yawa as the Rice transfer that who first got here, we thought he was going to be their starting offensive left tackle. And it's like, okay, maybe he's their starting right tackle. Okay, maybe he's their starting guard. Okay, he's rotating with Tegra at guard. To by the end of the year, he played 96 snaps in 8 games. And when Tegra Shabola was not available for the Cotton Bowl, he is not the first option they went to Gabe Van Sickle, and he wasn't even the second option. They went to Josh Padilla. And then when Austin Ceravelle went down in that game, they went to Ian Moore and not Ethan and Yawa. And as we know, Ryan Day hired Brian Hartline to be the play caller. So Stefan, let's rank these from biggest impact to least of the 3 impact on why Ohio State did not win a national championship in 2026.
I think as agonizing as it might have been at times, the kicking situation I think would be number 3 for me. Sure, it might win you the game against Indiana, but Fielding had an important miss against Miami. I would not say that was one of the top 3 reasons why they lost that game. Or maybe it was number 3, but it wasn't one of the two top reasons that they lost the game. Whereas the coordinator situation and the offensive line situation might have been reasons they lost to Miami and also lost to Indiana, right? So I would eliminate that from being the most important thing or the one that would have won them a natty. I would probably say torn between the two. I'll go the offensive coordinator route. And the reason I go that way is because I just think the core of Ohio State's issues offensively really were kind of the approach, it felt like, right? The speed that they played with, at times the personnel packages that they used. I've said a couple times since that Miami game that I didn't think the personnel was really much of an issue in that game against Miami as much as it was execution and maybe a lack of urgency in terms of tempo and the way that they the speed in which they played with that offense. I thought the personnel packages were fine, but I wonder if it's clear that the slower pace and wanting to, whether it be preserve health or just limit possessions it was a Ryan Day approach, right? I don't think it was Brian Hartline who came into the room and said, "Hey, let's be the slowest team in the country offensively." And Ryan Day said, "Okay, Brian Hartline, it's your offense. You go ahead and do that." Like, I think that was definitely something that starts at the top, and maybe Brian Hartline had some influence on it, but it's definitely something that, Ryan Day probably had the biggest voice on. And I wonder if that would have been different if it was an outside offensive coordinator coming in, right? Because if it's Ryan Day's idea, Brian Hartline's kind of in this tough spot where it's like, okay, like you know best, like we'll listen to you. Whereas someone like an Arthur Smith, or even if it was still Chip Kelly or whoever it may have been, who came in with an outsider's perspective, may have said at a certain point, like, hey, this is not our best route. Hey, let's incorporate this. Let's do that. And if Ohio State played differently on offense, I think this season could have been a lot different in terms of results, to the point where I think they could have won a national title. So, and I think playing with that tempo, when we saw it a bit against Miami, and it was very, very small bit, but we saw it a bit against Miami. The offensive line looked a little bit better. Miami's defensive line was kind of on its heels. They're getting tired. I feel like having a different coordinator and a different voice in that room could have alleviated some of the issues you had on the offensive line. Could have maybe helped you execute in the red zone to where Jaden Fielding doesn't have to make a pivotal kick against Indiana. You're just scoring touchdowns instead. So everything they did on offense, I feel like having an outsider's voice could have helped with that. So I'll say different coordinator, number one. Ethan Owinyawa panning out, number two, because I think there is elements there to, like, if Austin Serval was your starting right guard, or if Philip Daniels is your starting right guard and Austin Serval's at tackle, feel really good about that offensive line, assuming Ethan Owinyawa holds up. And then I'll put the kicker situation at third.
What do you think, Gillis?
Well, I'm glad somebody from the 703 area code texted in. That's my area code. I have a 571 number, but it's the same one. So my house phone number growing up was 703. So shout out to 703. Needed to get that in there. I'm the same list as Stefan. I don't want to belabor the point, but like, I pulled up the game logs from Indiana and Miami. Like, Ohio State, I understand it. Sometimes you struggle a little bit early on, and sometimes that, you need to find your way into a game, and some of the best coordinators in football, college or pro, have that. But you start to kind of look at this, and like the Indiana game, you go 12 plays, 70 yards, 6:28 off the clock. You turn it over on downs, 15 plays, 81 yards, 7:57 off the clock, and you miss the field goal. So like, I understand where like the Jaden Fielding thing comes in. Like, I don't know. I know there were some injuries at receiver, but you start to think, okay, maybe you're not in that position. Maybe it's 13-6 and you're up before Indiana scores that touchdown, and now it's 13-13, and the missed field goal doesn't matter as much, or like, there are all these just different kind of permutations that you can take from this. They started really, really slow against Miami. The second half, they scored a touchdown on 11 plays and 82 yards against Miami, 10 plays, 75 yards, touchdown, and then they punted, and that was the end of the game for all intents and purposes. They had 3 second half possessions where it wasn't frantic, let's try to save our lives here, and 2 of them ended in a touchdown. 66% of your drives ending on a touchdown is pretty good. Extrapolate it out. The last one, it's like, do you want to count that? There was like, I don't know what, like less than a minute left, and Julian was just kind of hucking it up there. So it's like, I don't know if you get out of that a little bit quicker, which they did, and then they missed a field goal. Is it 14-7 at halftime? Like, is it closer? Like, you could just kind of run through this and say, maybe a Matt Patricia level guy, maybe somebody who's really, really talented on that level, on that side of the ball, maybe get you out of trouble a little bit quicker. Maybe you're feeling pretty good about it. So I think it's that one. The Onyonwa one is fine. I don't think the offensive line played well against Indiana or Miami, but I don't know how much a guy like that is holding up, because you like Austin Sareveld was great all year. It wasn't like, man, the left tackle was a disaster all year. It was, the right guard spot. And like, I understand it's a problem for us to talk about, and it's a problem for us to kind of focus on. And I'm sure like people who cover TCU football are probably going, man, this nickel corner is really not a great spot for TCU. And like, I'm sure they're hyper focusing on some things, but every team's got that. And Ohio State's just happened to be right guard. So it's like, it's impossible to suggest they're perfect everywhere. But I don't know how much of a difference that would have made against those two teams.
So here's the reason why the kicker's number 3 for me. Because Jaden Fielding didn't miss 55-yard field goals. Like, this is not the 2022 Peach Bowl, where it essentially came down to whether or not Noah Ruggles could make a field goal. We all knew that he didn't have the leg to make. And they had a guy sitting on the bench who could make a 50-plus yard field goal. Though they did, ironically. They had a transfer from USC who had done it before. But those are not the kicks that people were frustrated with Jaden Fielding about. They were frustrated with Jaden Fielding against Michigan in 2024 because he missed field goals that were less than 40 yards. He missed a 27-yarder in the Big Ten championship game. So he missed the type of field goal that a college football kicker should be making routinely indoors. So that's I don't know if like Jackson Corville changes that because of a skill set. That's just simply because if you think that maybe Jackson Corville wouldn't have gotten frozen up in the moment or whatnot, but we don't know that to be true. Jackson Corville hadn't kicked all year. So it's I don't know. There's an element there of like lesser of two evils with Jaden Fielding. It's like, hey man, he's the best of what you got, and the lights just got too bright for him. I actually think offensive coordinator second. Go ahead.
The question we got was Jackson Corville stepping in and being an all Big Ten kicker. So like in this hypothetical, like Jackson Corville is good. He's not just like the lesser of two evils. So like the question is asking like if Ohio State had a good kicker, would that have made a difference?
I know. I don't think that's about like, but 27-yard field goal isn't like good to me. That's just like routine for me. That's why I worded it that way, because all Big Ten kicker, like, I don't know, like Michigan's kicker, I know he had like a weird month there in November. But part of the reason why he was considered the best kicker in the Big Ten because he was making 50-yarders pretty routinely, right? The Illinois kicker who hopped in the portal, that dude was making 50-yarders pretty routinely. For what routine is like, you made 3 or 4 of them. No one's kicking 7 50-yard field. This isn't the NFL. But Jaden Fielding didn't miss field goals where it's like the difference between a good field goal kicker and a bad field goal kicker. He missed field goals where even if you are a baseline just starting kicker in college football and you miss it, we're like, what the heck are you doing, dude? It's 27 yards indoors. And I don't want to turn this into a bash on Jaden Fielding. He's not here anymore. The OC second for me. I don't know. And maybe it's because back in March last year, I was like, I don't know, what if this isn't like a smooth sailing ride? What if this isn't just awesome from the get-go? And it also doesn't help that it felt like the Penn State game was a turning point, and then Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate missed a month of football. And then, I don't know, like, did Brian Hartline called a pretty good Michigan game, right? I think we could all say that. He called a pretty good Michigan game. I don't know what the heck happened between that and 7 days later. Wait, yeah, I do. Brian Hartline took a job to be the South Florida head coach. So I don't know. Brian Hartline wasn't great at this, but I don't think it's because I don't think he'll never be great at this. It's just it was his first year doing it, and his last month doing it, when you really thought that he would start to find his groove, him and Julian Sayin together, there was a series of events that maybe gotten into the way. And maybe I'm building in an excuse for Brian Hartline because it's not like the first 2 months were great either, but I don't know. He was a first-time play caller. If you didn't think there were going to be growing pains, then I don't know what to tell you, especially when you've got a brand new starting quarterback along with that new play caller. So I don't know. It's Chip Kelly's a better play caller than him, but Chip Kelly had some dumb play calling games too in 2024. I think we have to say that. For me, Ethan Inyawa not being the starting left tackle, everything falls from that. Because everything about the offensive line in 2025 is no longer the plan. It was not the plan to start Austin Sareveld at left tackle. And yes, he did a very good job at it. But a week and a half ago, we all also got on this pod and said, hey, it'd be really nice if Austin Sareveld was not their starting left tackle in 2026. Because you know how much better the offensive line would be if he's not their starting left tackle? Because that means a bunch of other guys stepped up. And it's not an insult to Austin Sareveld. It's about what maximizes the room. You spent $1 million on a dude, and he played 96 snaps in 8 games in a year that you played 14 football games. And he played in one meaningful football game for you. And it was the first game of the season. And he wasn't a starter for you in that game. And I know the scenario that gets pointed out there is like he fulfills Todd Luginbill's like best offensive lineman in the portal. I don't know. What if Ohio State's left tackle was a first-round draft pick? How differently do we talk about them going into the Miami game? Where it's like, okay, well, Ruben Bain or Mesidor, they might be a problem that the other 4 offensive linemen can handle, but at least Ethan and Yawa's got one of them in check. I don't actually know, because Carter Smith didn't do much better than these offensive tackles. But like, I don't know, what if that was the case? What if you had one side of your offensive line that you were no longer concerned about? And so because of that, Julian Sand gets sacked 2 less times each game. So instead of 10 total sacks, he gets sacked 6 times. Don't we feel a little bit better about Ohio State's ability to do things? If it didn't feel like, especially with Miami, where it felt like pressure was coming at him from both sides of things because they had 2 guys. Like, that was the thing. Miami had 2 guys on the edge that were a problem. Ohio State had half a guy in total who were, by the end of that game, who were like able to look them in the eye. And what if they had a guy who could look those guys in the eye? How does that change things when at the end of the day, with all the problems Ohio State had, it came down to they could not pass protect. And so they could not unlock their best weapon in the 2 most important games of the season.
They couldn't pass protect, but they also figured it out in the second half. I guess that's why I lean offensive coordinator more than that. Like, they moved the ball pretty well against Miami in the second half. Like, they went tempo, and it's like, okay, well, they did that with Austin Sareveld, who was playing on a leg that for the rest of the first half, like that drive that they put together in the 2-minute, like Austin Sereveld's leg was not in a great place, and they did fine because they were.
What if they don't have to figure it out?
But I'm saying, like, I don't know, like, I think it would have been a better, like, sure, they wouldn't have to figure it out, but like you said, Carter Smith also got his ass kicked by Mesidor and Bain, and like that guy, people were talking about him as a maybe first-round pick, and it's like, I don't know, would Josh Simmons have fared all that much better against these guys? Because like those guys were really good, and I think an offensive coordinator might have been able to scheme you out of it like they did in the second half with Ian Moore and with Phillip Daniel.
Yeah, but here's the difference. Carter Smith might be a first-round draft pick. We're saying he might be. He's going back to school. In this scenario, Ethan Nyawa is a bona fide, no questions asked.
It's like, yeah, he's like a first or a second round pick, right?
Like it's locked in stone.
Yeah,
Like,
I know that.
So listen, man, like he got sacked 5 times in each game. So if you take 2 sacks off of each game, that makes a difference. When you're talking about a young quarterback where we all said it, he got sacked 4 times in the first half of the Big Ten championship game. And then we all said because he got sacked 4 times in the first half, he was maybe rattled for the rest of the game. It changed how Ohio State had to approach things against Miami. Part of the reason they're throwing bubble screens is because they got to get the ball out of Julian Sand's hands because they can't run long developing plays because he's not seeing it and he's getting pressured religiously. And this is not about Ethan. This is about the evaluation of Ethan because they brought him in. They put the investment in him. So it still goes back on the coaches. You chose wrong. And I don't think Ohio State has been this wrong about a portal guy yet. Even Vic Cutler. Vic Cutler wasn't brought in here with the intention that he was going to be a starter. I genuinely think since the portal's construction, since the idea of like you can transfer without having to sit out and all that stuff, we could make a list of who the best transfers Ohio State's brought in, right? We can talk about Justin Fields. We can talk about Caleb Downs and Will Howard and Quinshon Judkins and even Tanner McCall. We can talk about those guys. Josh Simmons. This is the worst decision they've made in the portal. Like, by far. I don't think it's close.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Relative to expectations, yeah.
Right. That dude was supposed to be your starter at the NFL money position. And by the end of the year, you were down your starting right guard and your starting left tackle, and you were on your 3rd dude playing guard, and he still wasn't an option for you. That's not good. And I don't listen. And so that's why it's number 1 for me. Yeah, sure. Like, I don't know if like Brian Hartline got drastically out-schemed against Miami. And also, I don't know, like, I don't think either offensive coordinator had a good day in the Big Ten championship game. It was 23 total points. Indiana averaged 40 points this year. They scored 13. So, like, I don't, like, yeah, we cover Ohio State, so we gave Hartline a hard time, but, like, I don't know, Indiana's offensive coordinator had a good day? No, the 2 defensive coordinators had a good day. So, yeah, Brian Hartline wasn't great at this, but players make or break teams. And at the end of the day, Indiana wasn't concerned about whether or not its offensive linemen, whether there was people who were already in the program or guys that they brought in via transfer portal, were going to hold up. Miami didn't have to worry about its offensive line Miami and Indiana didn't have guys where they had an expectation that this guy's going to be a starter here, and that guy just wasn't playable by November, amongst the other things. So that's why it's number one for me.
I am picturing a Big Ten championship game where Ethan Owinyawa is a first-round left tackle, and he's blocking so Julian Saint can throw to Bennett Christian on a 4th and 1.
I'll say this. Yeah. I'll say this. Ethan Owinyawa and that not working out put Ohio State in a tough spot. Ohio State did not handle that tough spot great. Is that a good way to maybe summarize this?
Yeah, probably.
Okay. All right. Let's move on. I think that puts a bow on the 2025 season. Let's take a break. We just spent 20 minutes on that. On rapid fire. Again, rapid fire. It's just like
we'll be better at the rapid fire part of this when we come back from break.
I'm not going to guarantee you that. Like, we've been saying that for years and we just don't do it. Let's take a break here. We'll get into some other things looking forward here.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. Stop waiting around for the perfect candidate. Instead, use Indeed sponsored jobs to find the right people with the right skills fast. It's a simple way to make sure your listing is the first candidates see. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs have 4 times more applicants than non-sponsored jobs. So go build your dream team today with Indeed. Get a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
They always tell you there's a catch, a compromise, an asterisk. Terms apply. See store for details. May be less than advertised. May vary by mood. Probably. Sprite Zero Sugar? It's different. It's the lemon lime flavored refreshment you want with zero sugar. So, no fast voice? No caveats. Just refreshment. This is Sprite Zero Sugar. Obey your thirst.
And we're back here on Buckeye Talk. Stephen Means, Stefan Krajisnik, and Andrew Gillis. Let's lighten the mood a little bit here, because I feel like what if these guys just did their things better? And that's always great. But listen, sometimes you just want to lighten the mood a little bit. From the 4 great season of covering the Buckeyes, and love all the content you guys put out. Thank you for that. 3 different questions again. Well, yes, it's 3. 1, favorite city you guys visited this year for a Buckeyes road game and why? 2, if you had to compare this past year's Ohio State team to an NFL team, who would it be? My first thought is the Eagles minus the A.J. Brown stuff. I don't know. I would include the A.J. Brown stuff. And then, sorry, I know I'm cheating with 3, but if you guys were drafting for your NFL teams and had to pick an OSU player, who would it be and why? I like this question. First and foremost, is it anybody other than the Eagles?
I mean, the Eagles are the only one that really comes to mind immediately.
Okay. I don't know. It's reigning national champion. Everybody's mad at the offensive coordinator. The offense looks weird. They keep winning games, even though everybody knows this is destined to probably fail at some point. You don't get your best wide receiver the ball nearly as often as you need to get him the ball. And maybe your quarterback was good, but not good enough. I don't know. I just think it's, unless somebody has a different option, I probably just is the Eagles. So Gillis, favorite city that went to this year, and also if you had to draft a Buckeye for the Washington Commanders, why is it Arvell Reese?
The favorite city, is there another answer than Seattle?
I don't know. It's up to you.
I don't think there's another answer. I'd never been to Seattle before. I loved Seattle. I had one of the best, or some of the best crab I've ever had in my life at like what was it, Pike's Market or whatever that's called. Us 3, we all went out to lunch. Gorgeous. Stefan and I did the Space Needle. Steven didn't want to do it. Steven's not a heights guy. So
nope.
Steven was just kind of walking around at the bottom. So like
I saw that. It was great.
It was. Everybody like talks about Seattle. They're like, oh, it rains all the time. It's gray. It's cold. It's cloudy. And it was gorgeous when we were in Seattle. That was awesome. I thought the stadium was really cool. It was very, very loud for the first quarter or so. You know, like they have the same thing as the Seahawks where, you know, like the noise just kind of goes down, like the roof or whatever just kind of directs it right back onto the field. I learned what sailgating was. I didn't know that was a thing. Public transit was amazing. Stefan and I saw a Mariners game. We saw them play the Dodgers. Great seats, great view. I loved Seattle. Like I told him when we were there, I was like, I don't think I could live in Seattle. It's too far away. And then like halfway through the day, I looked at him and I was like, I think I might be able to live in Seattle. This place rocks. It's still very far away, but that place rocks. I actually had this conversation with my friend the other night. Probably Arvell. I think it's Arvell. I mean, the Commanders are so bad that you could convince me it's Caleb too, because if you just think Caleb Downs is the better player, then that's fine. They just stink, where it's kind of like a reverse galaxy brain where they're like, you know what? We're so bad, it doesn't matter who we take because they're going to be better than what we have. So I think it's Arvell Reese. Dan Quinn coached Micah Parsons in Dallas. I think you can use Arvell as an off-ball linebacker at times. I think you can use him off the edge. The Commanders don't have any defensive players that are any good. Deron Payne is fine. They have a couple young players that are fine, but none of them are good. So Arvell Reese probably has to be somebody on defense. I mean, look, Carnell Tate would look sick in burgundy and gold, but Arvell.
Stefan, what would the Bears lunatic fringe want?
It's Arvell Reese. They have literally no pass rush. They have Caleb Downs would be good because Kevin Byard is getting old, but Arvell Reese, without a doubt, Montez Sweat is okay, and that's about all they had up front to get pressure
You're
on.
welcome for that, by the way.
So yeah, it's definitely Arvell Reese for me. Although, yeah, Caleb Downs would be kind of fun too, though. I could talk myself into both of them. Favorite city, I agree, was Seattle. We got lucky with the weather there, and the time of the year that we went. All those experiences were cool. I wish we didn't stay in Madison. We flew in and out of Milwaukee, so we stayed in Milwaukee. I love Madison. Seattle was a cool element because Seattle's the better city. It's a bigger city, but I had never been there before. Madison, I had been to before, and I know Madison is an awesome college town. So I wish we had been in Madison proper. So I'll go with Seattle simply because we got to experience that kind of to its full extent, and that was a very cool city, and we got lucky with good weather. I also just looked up pictures, Steven, the I think it was salmon that you and I had at Pike Place. Here's the picture if you want to see it again.
Oh, that was so good.
It was so good, man. It was so good.
That sound was great. I think that's the best road meal I ate all year.
Oh yeah, like definitely. I had some good cheese curds in Wisconsin, but
yeah.
That might have been the best road meal I've had, like on the beat. I mean, barbecue in Texas was also very, very good, but like it's up there.
That's some really good ice cream at the Mariners game. And we've talked about this on the live show before. We don't need to rehash it. We had some damn good ice cream at the Mariners game to the point where I bought a shirt.
Yeah, he did buy a shirt. Yeah, West Lafayette. It was great. West Lafayette. It was depressing. It was miserable. It lived up to expectation. It didn't rain though, and we were joking actually that this is the best weather we've ever had in West Lafayette. The times we've been there. No, the answer is Seattle. It was great out there. While they were up in the space needle, I was walking around exploring. It's like really safe. The area we were in. It was like a museum. I almost went in it, but I was like, no, it's nice outside. I'm going to stay outside. They were like having a bike festival on one of like the green lawns, and my dad's really into biking. Like he bikes. He's in like, groups and stuff. He bikes for real. Like they go like 60-mile rides and stuff like that. It's this summer they're like going on tour and stuff. It's awesome. And I was like looking around and I'm like, to Gillis's point of you feel like you're out there on an island, I have never felt that disconnected from the rest of the country in my life. It's because you're up just tucked in the corner and it feels like a different world and the air is a little different. I'm like, man, I love it here. I can't live here because I'd never be able to talk to anybody in my family at a reasonable hour, but I like it here a lot. I would say in terms of who I think the Falcons could take if we weren't stupid and gave our pick to the Los Angeles Rams, I think just because they moved Drake London around, and Drake London I know is a bigger receiver, but he can do some slot stuff. Carnell Tate would be great, just because I feel like there could be a good marriage between him and Drake London the same way it was for JJ and Carnell this past year. Granted, what's the point of having two really good receivers if you have an old man playing quarterback or a lefty who's constantly breaking down as a quarterback? So I guess that's what it is, what it was. Arvell Reese, I mean, you can never have too many pass rushers. I know we just took James Pierce and Jalen Walker last year, but I don't know. The Eagles had that run where they were taking pass rushers every year, and it's like, why did you do that? And then Patrick Mahomes found out why they were doing that. But I think the best fit in terms of if I put a GM hat on, it's probably Caleb Downs, just because I think Xavier Watt was really pretty good for us last year, and he's young and he's a rookie, so he's cheap. It's like, can we get a cheaper Jesse Bates? As Jesse Bates starts to get older, I think that would be a good fit there, and we could maybe move on from Jesse Bates and use that money a little bit. But it's not because Jesse Bates is a bad player. It's just that's how the NFL works. It's like, you're good, but this player is just as good, and he's younger and he's cheaper. So we're going to go with this guy. So mine would probably be Caleb Downs for that instance. Let's see here. Let's talk about some Arthur Smith stuff here. From the 614, Ohio State bringing in NFL coaches onto the staff is incredible, and it's something no other program can do. While I like the hires, they feel short-term and still somewhat risky. These coaches end up being rentals, given the challenge of attracting NFL talent consistently every year. How do you weigh that approach against something like Cignetti and his staff who have been together forever? What are the long-term advantages of prioritizing NFL hires over younger college football minds who may be able to develop and stay longer? I think this is a wonderful way to have this conversation. There's a few Arthur Smith questions on here. I think this one is interesting because Ryan Day has preached continuity, Stefan, but that has not necessarily been the case with his coordinators. While Cignetti's two coordinators, they followed him from James Madison. They're both locked in. I think they both just got new contracts this offseason, so they're not going anywhere. Day's approach is maybe a little bit more in line with what Nick Saban's was, where it's like, it doesn't matter who's pushing the button. This is the system. The system doesn't change. That is where the continuity is. That is where the consistency is, even if the names and the butts and the seats change. What are the pros and cons of someone who has gotten to experience both sides of that? One as just an alum, and the other one because you get paid to do it. What do you think are the pros and cons of both sides of that?
I mean, the pros of continuity are pretty obvious, right? Shanahan and Haynes understand Kurt Cignetti's mind better than, anyone in the world. There's probably very few coaches who have that strong and that long of a relationship, with their coordinators and their assistants, in the world of college football today. But I do think there's advantages too to the way that Ryan Day approaches it. And it's not even like, I don't think it's necessarily approach, but it's like, what are you going to do? The Raiders offered the biggest contract to a coordinator, to Chip Kelly, and Brian Hartline got a head coaching job because he wanted to be a head coach, right? Like Brian Haynes has come out and been like, I'm not really interested in being a head coach. So it's like sometimes it just works out differently, I guess.
Let's see what happens if like one of these blue blood jobs opens up in the next 24 months if Haynes is still singing the same tune.
Right. Also, like Haynes' head coach is not the youngest guy in the world. So I don't know. Maybe Brian Haynes is like, hey, Indiana just won a national title. What if I just stay here and take over for Kurt Cignetti? So you say what you say. But Ryan Day's kind of approach, I think, is interesting because he's done a good job. And I listened to Urban Meyer talk about this a bit on their podcast of just it's Ryan Day's offense. And a lot of times when you hire a new coordinator, they come in with their offense and their terminology and everything's different, right? And I think that would be difficult if between Chip Kelly and Brian Hartline and Arthur Smith now, like a guy like Jeremiah Smith was forced to have his third different playbook. Like everything's different, terminology is different. You have to relearn everything every offseason. Ryan Day's done a good job of whether it was Chip, whether it's Hartline, or what I'm sure will happen now with Arthur Smith, kind of meshing it, right? Where it's like, here is what I do best. And Arthur Smith will be like, okay, here's what I do best. Okay, let's put that together in a way that's really easy for these players to understand and grasp and run it well. And that's how you get, I think, this level of continuity in play calling and approach while having a lack of continuity in terms of the play caller, right? And who it is running things. So I think that's Ryan Day has been able to establish continuity in an area where it might seem like they have zero continuity because it's a changing, person in that seat. So that's where I think Ryan Day's approach has been effective of just like, there is an understanding that this is Ryan Day's offense, who will run it and maybe make some tweaks to it to make it, the best of its ability for that, given roster or that year's roster, whatever it may be. So I don't know. Like, I don't think either approach is right or wrong. I'm sure if you asked Ryan Day which one he would prefer, it's probably Cignetti's approach where you just keep your coordinator for forever and things are perfect and it's a well-oiled machine every year. But that's not the case at Ohio State, and that's not necessarily Ryan Day's fault. All things considered, I think he's handled it in a smart way. And then also just bringing in NFL guys, I think is just a smart thing in general. Like he doesn't have to recruit like that. Urban Meyer was talking about how the biggest problem was you bring in an NFL guy, you need him to recruit, and he's never recruited, right? He's had a general manager and a head coach and an owner who have recruited for him. Like he doesn't, okay, welcome to Ohio State where Ryan Day, your assistant coaches and your general manager and your athletic director in some way recruit for you and they make things happen for you. So it makes sense, right? Like it wouldn't have made sense to do this 5 years ago. But if your options now are, here is the quarterback coach and passing game coordinator from Fresno State because their offense has been humming, or here is Arthur Smith who turned down the Eagles to come work for you. I don't know, that the latter seems to make a lot of sense if it works in the current era, and it does work in the current era.
Arthur Smith turned down the Eagles to come coach the Eagles. Great. From a recruiting standpoint, Gillis, does it actually matter whether or not your coordinator is here for 7 years or you're having a new coordinator every year?
It depends. Like from the recruiting standpoint, Chip Kelly didn't show up and recruit. Like Chip Kelly kind of said, like, I think this guy's good. I think that guy's good. I think he would look good in our offense. And then he just kind of like didn't do a whole lot of recruiting.
Went to Vegas.
Yeah, like that's the thing is you can have a coordinator who recruits a whole heck of a lot. You can have a coordinator who doesn't. So I think it depends. I think it depends. Like I think you would love to have a coordinator who recruits, because that would mean that they're good at it. If you don't, which is fine. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. Like, I don't think Ohio State's defense in 2024 or even like 2023 was necessarily like dead because Jim Knowles wasn't really an active recruiter, right? Like, I mean, think about it. Like, you have Larry Johnson, you have James Laurinaitis, you have Tim Walton, you have Matt Guerreri. That's probably fine. Like, you're probably okay with those guys as recruiters. If you didn't have that staff, which many programs don't, and I'm sure a lot of programs are, really active about their, like, I'm sure Texas is probably looking at it going like, oh, our offensive line coach, blah blah blah, and I'm great, and that's fine. But that it depends on what else is on the staff and what kind of fit, because like you can have a great coordinator that's a wrong fit for you, right? You can have a guy who comes in and says, I want to recruit and I'm going to be great at this. I really want to recruit receivers. Well, you got Cortez Hankton. So are they going to be able to work together? Are they going to be able to, kind of tag team that? So the recruiting aspect, I don't think matters as long as there is a culture in place. The offense, like we've talked about this, the offense really isn't going to fundamentally change. Like Ohio State's not showing up running the Power I next year because Chip Kelly left and Brian Hartline left. And it's like, oh, it's Arthur Smith now. Time to run the wishbone. Paul.
Like Keenan Bailey hear you.
Like they're not hiring Paul Johnson to come coach offense, right? So that's like it really doesn't matter, I don't think, fundamentally. Now, if they are active recruiters, I think it does put an extra onus. Like, for example, let's say Chip Kelly was a wildly active recruiter. Chip Kelly's in every meeting. He's out on the trail all the time. He's known as one of the best recruiters in college football, blah, 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 right? Like that's the archetype for Chip Kelly. Let's pretend that was that. You also need Billy Fessler to be active as a recruiter, because then in a situation like that, okay, well, Chip Kelly leaves. Where does that leave you with your quarterbacks that you have committed or you're recruiting now? You don't want to start over midway through their recruitment. Like where does that leave you when a position coach leaves? You need those guys to be active as well. So it weaves back and forth. So it depends. Just real quick, I know I've been on for a minute. The point about like cons, like, oh, well, this guy can just leave, like the NFL guy can leave for the NFL at any time again. Yeah, but like I know Haynes is a different example, but like dudes can leave for other positions too, right? Like you could be a college guy through and through and then just go to the NFL. How many times have you read Marcus Freeman's name this offseason as like a potential NFL head coach? And I know that's a head coach, but he never coached in the NFL, and teams are like, I think he's a really, really good coach. Let's have him coach our NFL team. It doesn't matter. Brian Hartline, like take somebody like that, or take somebody that is on Ohio State staff, Larry Johnson. What if 5 years ago, if the Dallas Cowboys were like, we think Larry Johnson would be a really good defensive line coach? I don't know. That's enticing. So,
I mean, Jesse Minter, Joe Brady, and Jeff Hafley all just got hired as head coaches in the NFL.
Exactly.
They were coaching in college a couple years ago.
Example.
Joe Brady was the offensive coordinator for the team everybody thinks is the greatest super team of all time. I think that's one of the only years he spent in college football.
Right.
The reason why I don't think it's that big of a deal. Now, great, if you can find something like what Cignetti's tapped into there, by all means, that's great, because it's one less thing you have to worry about as a head coach every January. Is okay. And on top of everything else, I have to find 2 new employees. And like anybody who's ever hired anybody would think that. I think our bosses would feel that way. Like, right, we had a time here where back-to-back years we lost people on the Ohio State beat. Okay, we're in the year 2 of. I don't think anybody's going anywhere. I guess we'll see. Life is life.
Not interested in a head coaching job right now.
Thanks. I really love college. I love the development of young players. Isn't that what everybody says? And then they go to the NFL and they go, I really hated college. I hated recruiting and all those different things. I don't know. I think it's safe to assume that this current makeup of Buckeye Talk will be here for a little bit. But listen, again, you never know. Things happen. Life is life. But if these kids are trying to get to the NFL, and in the NFL, Jackson Dart just got to the Giants and he's about to be on his second head coach, right? Like Justin Fields got drafted by the Bears and within like 18 months, he was on his second head coach. Caleb Williams is in his second year in the NFL. He's on his second head coach, right? This is normal in the NFL. This type of movement in the NFL is very, very normal. And I understand when you're dealing with 16 to 23-year-olds, that's a very valuable time. And so like everything kind of means something big, but they're going to get to the NFL and all of a sudden the amount of movement, right? You might be in your quarterback room one year and it's you and these 3 guys. And then the very next year, it's you and 3 other very different guys. So this is kind of it's more chaotic in college football because there's no structure to all these things happening. But the concept of there's constantly things changing, there's constantly musical chairs. That's what pro sports are. And so I think almost Ohio State's what's happened here with Jeremiah Smith, where he's about to be on his third offensive play caller in 3 years here. This might be, I don't know if he gets drafted by the Dolphins, this might be the first 6 years of his career with the Dolphins. And so he's not going to get to the NFL and be like, I'm so used to having one thing. It's like, no, okay. Yeah, we had this play caller this year. We had this play caller that year. It's like, oh, that's fine. It happens. I just play football. As Myles Garrett says, I just play football.
And I just want to add in real quick to like the idea of taking an NFL guy. Like, think about how I want to ask Arthur Smith this whenever we get the chance to talk to him. Like, think about how enticing that opportunity has been for Patricia and for Arthur Smith to not only be like, hey, you kind of have lesser talent now. Like the Steelers offense was not very good. The Falcons offense was not very talented. The Titans offense.
We went 7-10.
Yeah. Is that ironic or was that truthful?
No, it's like the NFC South 7-10 was fourth.
It's like going 7-10 in the MAC.
You can't talk like this right now. You really can't talk like this right now.
My team plays in the NFC East.
Talk like this right now. You can not talk like this right now. You have the Cowboys in your division.
I thought the 7-10 thing was a joke about Arthur Smith going 7-10 every year with the.
Yeah, it was the joke, and then like you decided to start talking trash about my team and made it a thing.
Well, my point is like. You now have a decided talent advantage. Like, look at Ohio State's schedule. How many games do they not have a talent advantage? Minimum 3. Like, if you want to say Oregon and Texas are talent equated, then I'm cool with that. I'm living with that. But like, Indiana's a little bit of a different beast for many different reasons. Michigan, Ohio State's always has the talent advantage there. You just got to figure out how to beat those guys. But it's like, think about how enticing that is for some of these NFL guys. So yeah, you're not going to maybe get the next Sean McVay, but you might get somebody who's coached in the NFL a while who's been like, you know what? This would be really, really cool to not have to just try and scheme around a dude who's not going to be in the NFL.
I'm not going to say a team who just won a national championship and went 16-0 and has been killing it in the transfer portal is not talent equated. I think.
So then Indiana, throw them in there.
I think USC might be talent equated. I think there's more talent equated teams this year because the talent's a little bit more spread out. It's just when you look at recruiting rankings, still has the bar for whether or not a team is talented or not. And I think when a team just goes 16-0 and they have the 33rd best recruiting class in the country, maybe we should stop just using recruiting rankings as that. The SP plus rankings are going to be very interesting as those continue to get updated throughout the year. A couple more before we take our final break here that are just looking forward from the 215. And I think both of these are maybe kind of paired a little bit, even though they're two different people. So I'll just ask them at the same time. Do you feel more or less confident in this team than you felt this time last year when they had a new DC first time starting quarterback, first time starting running back, returning talent on defense, Caleb Downs, etc.? Should Ohio State fans feel better or worse than they felt in 2025 about the upcoming season? Let's start there. Yes or no? Which one? Stefan, should Ohio State fans feel better or worse than whatever they were feeling in 2025 back in January?
I think better. I think you've got a returning quarterback. I think you've got, an answer at running back in terms of who's coming back. Jeremiah Smith is still here. Offensive line's intact. I think going into last year, like a lot of the areas we had questions was you're losing so much on defense and you're losing, good amount on your offensive line. How do you address those two things? Okay, well, Matt Patricia just showed you that he can be just fine in changing up a defense and having a lot of players coming in and out. And all these position coaches have proven to you that they can either develop players, as necessary as they step into starting roles, or, find guys out of the transfer portal, which Matt Guerreri's done before. He's doing it again, right? So, I think I would have more confidence, right? Because, a lot of what they're going through this offseason in terms of change on defense, they went through last year and it was just fine. And on offense, I think you've got more answers than you had last year. So, I would be pretty it's a tougher schedule, no doubt, or at least on paper it looks that way, but I would still feel more confident about 2026 being better than 2025. I think, frankly, going into 2025, we were looking at saying, okay, we'll see what happens with some of these changes going into this season, but you feel pretty good about 2026, assuming a lot of these guys come back. And I think that's the situation you kind of find yourself in.
Yeah, I think you feel better about the team because one, they just replaced a whole heck of a lot defensively and did pretty well with it. Now, I think there's a reasonable argument to be made that they're just not going to be as talented as they were because of that. Now, that doesn't mean they're going to be bad. Like, that doesn't mean Ohio State's going to have the 59th ranked defense of college football. That's not what I'm saying. I think they're still going to be really good. You lose like 4 first-round picks on one side of the ball. That's a problem. That's like in one draft specifically. But I think you feel better about the team because of like their ability to reload, because you just saw it, even though there was some concern going into 25 about that. The offense is veteran. They just, as we're recording this, they added a veteran offensive lineman in the portal from Dartmouth. You have an old offensive line. You have Jeremiah Smith coming back. You've got your running backs coming back. You've got a second-year quarterback. You've got a lot there. So I think you feel better about the team. I think you feel worse about the situation. Like, I don't know, I picked them to go 11-1. I think you guys also had 11-1. Maybe the loss was Michigan. Stefan might have had 12-0. Whatever you guys had, like, it's not unreasonable if you say, like, hey, I think they're going to go 10-2 because of the schedule that they play. So, like, could be better on paper and worse because of the situation.
I don't care about the situation as much. Like, they had the preseason number 1 and number 2 teams on their schedule last year, and both of them stunk. So
they could have that again this year, and then maybe like 1, 2, and 5.
No, yeah, that's a preseason. Yeah, but as a person who votes on that, that's just what you think a team is going to do. It has nothing to do with what they actually end up being. Like, I mean, what we saw last year from the preseason rankings is why people think that we shouldn't have preseason rankings anymore, and maybe we should wait a month into the season and then start ranking teams. Because then, like, I don't know, how differently would we have looked at Ohio State's schedule? Like, we probably looked at their schedule and we made such a big deal about the fact that they were starting with the number 1 team in the country. Would we have been? We wouldn't have done that. We just said, okay, it's to Ohio State, Texas. This is an interesting game, but we wouldn't have put nearly as much, just like pressure into that game as we did, because we knew it was a top 3 matchup. When come to find out, it wasn't a top 3 matchup by the end of the things. And so I don't know, like, I love voting those things. You're not getting rid of them, so it is what it is. But like, we'll see, right? Yeah, this schedule has more teams on it where you can have a good opinion about this team being good. But I guess we'll see if they're actually good or not. Just like Ohio State, I think they did a good job reloading at some spots. Yeah, they lost some talent, but this is Ohio State. Like, this is what happens. You replace good players with good football players. I think you should feel good. You should feel good because there's no major questions about Ohio State this year in terms of who. Now, the what and the when, that's a different conversation. That's what we'll spend a lot of the next 9 months talking about. But you know who your quarterback is. You know who the names are to be the potential starters on the offensive line. You know who your starting running back is. You know who your best weapon is. Everybody on defense, even if they haven't all done it at Ohio State, they do have a body of work that you can lean into as a floor. So I think this feels more comfortable than you did last year, where, like, with all due respect to what Darvell Reese eventually turned into, he was an idea when we were sitting here last January. He just happened to hit on that idea. And Edric Houston didn't completely hit on his idea, though, right? Like, so it kind of goes both ways there. We had no idea what was going on with safety. We thought, hey, man, maybe Malik Harford and Jalen McClain share that role. But listen, can they replace Lathan Ransom? Turn to find out, Jalen McClain's pretty damn good at this, right? So it's I don't know, man. They lost 4 starters on the defensive line last year. You might be able to make a case that this year's was better. That's a hard case to make, but you might be able to make the case, and I think the NFL draft might help us. But last thing, before we take our final break, from the 216, where did we strengthen our position group? Did any areas get weaker? A player in the portal that's the biggest stud and difference maker. And okay, so here's our 3 categories. Place that was strengthened the most during the offseason. Place that got the weak, that maybe was the most weakened by the offseason and the attrition that happened, both whether it was NFL draft, graduation, or transfer portal. And then the player in the portal that you think could be the biggest difference maker for this team. Gillis, you first.
Oh, that's a good question. I would say the place that they got the strongest was their defensive line. Like, I think they really bolstered that pretty significantly. I think the additions there, like, it just gives you more stability than maybe you thought you might have had. So that helps. Place where they lost the most this offseason, probably, linebacker, because Sonny and Arvell went to the NFL. If you want to say that, hey, they got the kid from Wisconsin whose name is escaping me.
Allegro.
Yeah, Allegro. Right. Like, you add him, it's like, okay, cool. Peyton Pierce could be awesome. And Riley Pettijohn could be awesome. And Christian Allegro could be awesome. Are they going to be 2nd overall pick, 9th overall pick? Awesome. Like, I don't know. They can still and I think that was kind of my case. Like, you could take a step back and still be good. And like other areas take step forwards on the roster. And then like in totality, your roster's still really good. Like there are things that can happen in that regard where it's like a push pull type thing. So like linebacker, when you lose 2 guys like Sonny and Arvell that were that good, that to me is just really hard to replace, because like I think you could make a case that secondary, losing Davison and Caleb, but like those are 2 kind of different positions. Like Arvell and Sonny both kind of played the same position. I know Arvell came off the edge, so there's that. And then what was the last one?
Which transfer portal addition you think can be the biggest difference maker?
Yeah, I'm kind of interested in Terry Moore. I think Terry Moore could be solid for them on the back end. Like when you have a guy that, I know he's coming off an ACL, but like when you're that veteran, if that's the whole point of this thing for Ohio State this year, right, was to get older, like I think that can be like a really, maybe not lighted up 1st round pick addition, but he could be one of those like Lathan Ransom players where people who watch Ohio State look at him and go, this dude's really, really important to what this defense is doing.
See, strengthen. That's good. Let me go with weak first, because I'll agree with linebacker. And it's so hard to replace 2 guys who are that good, right? Like safety maybe falls into this category as well, where like I think safety is going to be really good for them next year. I think that what they've added in the portal paired with Jalen McClain coming back is really good at safety. Guess what? It's really hard to replace one of the 5 best safeties in college football history, Caleb Downs. I mean, I don't know if Arvell and Sonny are regarded as like 2 of the greatest linebackers in college football history, but like they're both really damn good, and NFL teams seem to think so too. So I'll agree with Gillis in saying linebacker. I think you got deeper at receiver. I'll say it like that, because you obviously lose a 1st round pick. So to say like, Kyle Parker, Devin McEwen, or Chris Henry Jr. is going to come in and just automatically kind of be Carnell Tate, at least, Chris Henry Jr. might get there, maybe just not in year 1. It might sound crazy to say, but like David Adolph was the guy they turned to when Carnell and Jeremiah Smith were hurt. Mm-hmm. I don't think you're having to turn to a walk-on to do that in the 2026 season, right? And I think you're actually going to be able to rotate more, and maybe instead of having to lean on your tempo to get guys like Jeremiah Smith rest, maybe you can just rotate and you can play at a certain pace while having guys come into the game and use different receivers because you're deeper in the room. So it might be crazy to say because you lose Carnell Tate, but I think your receiver room got better. I think it got older, right? Because you're losing Mylan Graham and Quincy Porter, sure, but you're getting guys who have played. One guy at UTSA was a starter, dude. A guy at LSU played a lot of reps last year. Like, you got older, and we'll see. I mean, what could Mylan Graham and Quincy Porter turn out to be better players than Kyle Parker, Devin McEwen? Sure. They also might not. I don't know. We'll see what happens with their careers at Notre Dame. So I know what you're getting with Kyle Parker and Devin McEwen. You get Jeremiah Smith back, get another year of Brandon Ennis. You do add Chris Henry Jr., who, I don't know, maybe in a year we're talking about him like he's a top 5 receiver in college football anyway. So it's like, maybe you can expedite the return or the replacement of Carnell Tate. So I think receiver, they actually strengthen in a weird way, even though they lost Carnell Tate. And then the player from the portal that was the biggest impact, or whatever the phrasing was, I mean, give me Connor Hawkins. We talked about 3 things in that first question that we got.
Good answer.
Coordinator, they got Arthur Smith. Offensive line, they're returning most of their starters. And kicker. Okay, well, they addressed the kicker need in the transfer portal with a guy who was 3 for 4 on 50-yarders last year. So kicker is very important. It's cost Ohio State 2 of the most important games in the last 24 months or so. Actually, it's more like 14 months because the Michigan game was in November. Connor Hawkins from Baylor, the kicker. Pretty damn important for this Ohio State team.
You stole my answer. I was going to come over the top and start yelling and say, how come nobody said Connor Hawkins' name, given the fact that Ohio State's last 2 losses to Big Ten schools came down to whether or not their field goal kicker could make chip shot field goals. So no, I don't have to yell about it. I think tight end got weaker. And it's seriously, it's relative to what Ohio State was in 2025. And they did a lot of tight end stuff. Whether you liked how much tight end stuff they were doing, they felt like they had the guys who were capable of. They did more tight end stuff than they did wide receiver stuff in 2025. And so you lose 2 to the NFL, and Max Clare and Will Kazmarek, and Jelani Thurman's at North Carolina now. And so you're replacing them with Hunter Welsing and Mason Williams, and we'll see, right? Mason Williams, I think we've just decided he's Will Kazmarek because they both went to OU and they're both 6'5", 260 pounds. So we've just decided that he's going to be everything that Will Kazmarek was. But until he actually does it, it's just an idea. Hunter Welsing is 6'3". I don't think he's Max Clare upside in terms of a receiving threat. And maybe he doesn't have to be, given what the personnel of this team is. But for a team that likes to do 12 and 13 personnel, you just lost 3 of your top 4 tight ends from a year ago. And so now, okay, is Bennett Christian ready to do more? Is Nate Roberts ready to take that big step between year 1 and year 2? And can Hunter Welsing and Mason Williams come in here and help this team? And that does not mean I want to see any of those tight ends playing fullback in 2026. When a room goes from, you can make a case that from a per capita basis, it's the deepest room on the roster, to now you have this many question marks. I think it's notable to point out. Where they get stronger, I'm not going to yell here, but they got stronger at quarterback because their quarterback has 14 games as a starter under his belt, and he didn't have that last year. He had 27 snaps under his belt last year. So I think sometimes you getting stronger by doing nothing, right? Like they were losing so many receivers that JJ had to come out and say, I'm not leaving. There was a moment there where it felt like things were trending in the direction that Bo Jackson was not going to be at Ohio State in 2026. If we had to say, like, who are the faces of this team in 2026, just based off talent, it's probably those 3, Julian Sand, Bo Jackson, and Jeremiah Smith. Ohio State's answer to we can win a national championship in 2026 because starts with we have Julian Sand, Bo Jackson, and Jeremiah Smith. And then you get to the list of everything also out there. 2 of those 3 are going to be in Chicago this summer at Big Ten Media Days. I'll throw it out there. I think the third's probably going to be Kenyatta Jackson representing the defense. But I guess we'll see, right? We'll see what happens. Those 3 just to me seem like the most logical choices. Like, yeah, Julian, in this world where there's a bunch of quarterbacks around college football right now playing musical chairs, and Miami's has to go to a legal court case to be able to leave his school. There was no drama from Julian Sand at all. And that matters to me. I think that matters to me. Biggest portal stud, yeah, you guys said the 2 answers I was going to give. I think Terry Moore's a dude. So I'll say John Walker, just because I think Caden McDonald, that's a big loss the reason why they were able to be so good against their run is because they had a guy who was just eating up double teams and making a bunch of tackles, and that's not going to be easy to replace. And so if John Walker at 6'4", 234 pounds can replace Caden McDonald, that will take your defense a long way. Okay, final break here, and then we've got 4 more questions here on Buckeye Talk.
AI is incredible. It can teach you how to fry an egg and even write a poem, pirate style. Yarr! But it knows nothing about your work. Slackbot is different. It doesn't just know the facts. It knows your schedule. It can turn a brainstorm into a brief. And it doesn't need to be taught. Because Slackbot isn't just another AI. It's AI that knows your work as well as you do. Visit slack.com/meet Slackbot to learn more.
The world moves fast. Your workday, even faster. Pitching products, drafting reports, analyzing data. Microsoft 365 Copilot is your AI assistant for work. Built into Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and other Microsoft 365 apps you use. Helping you quickly write, analyze, create, and summarize. So you can cut through clutter and clear a path to your best work. Learn more at Microsoft.com/M365 Copilot.
And we're back here on Buckeye Talk. Stephen Means, Stefan Krajisnik, and Andrew Gillis. Not so rapid fire Q&A pod with the texters. Somehow we went an hour on 6 questions. But a lot of them had like little sub questions. So I do think we have to take that into account here. You brought up Chris Henry Jr. earlier, Stefan. So 937. My rapid fire question is this. I think it's obvious that Chris Henry Jr.'s recruitment, or if you prefer renegotiation, led to a subsequent transfers of Mylan Graham and Quincy Porter. Do you think it is fair as a fan to assume that the staff believed Chris Henry will have a larger impact on winning than that pair of receivers would have had? So that's not, obviously there's more to everything, right? Nothing is ever just as simple as like the 1 + 1 = 2, but there is some element here of you did let 2 receivers walk and you did hold on to Chris Henry Jr. And maybe if you'd not gotten Chris Henry Jr. and you were able to allocate those resources elsewhere, maybe you would have given it to Mylan Graham, Quincy Porter, or maybe you wouldn't have, right? But is that a fair assumption to make in terms of how Ohio State viewed those 3?
Yeah, probably to some extent, because I think you're looking at this saying to yourself, going into 2026, outside of Jeremiah Smith and Brandon Inniss, you're going to have a young 5-star receiver and Chris Henry Jr. with a pair of, I guess Quincy Porter was only going to be a sophomore, but Mylan Graham was going to be an upperclassman. Okay, if all of them are going to cost a lot of money, does it make more sense to have that 5-star young guy with 2 older guys who are maybe going to be a little bit cheaper, but also have played football? And that's kind of the balance you have to have now in college football of trying to figure that out, right? Like that's the question every team's trying to figure out. Do you trust Mylan Graham in year 3 to have a breakout season as a highly rated guy, or would you rather maybe for a little bit cheaper go out and get a guy who's played, maybe hasn't played to an immense ceiling, but kind of what the floor is, right? And that's what you're balancing. So I wouldn't say they chose Chris Henry Jr. over those guys, but I think if those guys came with a bigger price and the other options are maybe some more veteran guys out of the transfer portal to pair with Jeremiah, Chris Henry Jr., and Brandon Inniss, that latter route with the veteran guys seems to make a whole lot of sense considering what college football has looked like the last few years.
Gillis, we've talked a lot about the other side of that coin of Aaron Scott and Devin Sanchez, and how there's probably a large assumption of this fan base who's going to be looking at both of those guys this year, one at Oregon and one at Ohio State. And when Oregon comes to Columbus, that will probably be a big talking point that week. And it's okay, they're going to spend this year getting compared to each other as we wonder, did Ohio State make the right investment and the right 5-star cornerback? I don't know if we can do that with Chris Henry Jr. and Quincy Porter and Mylan Graham, though, simply because I don't know, this isn't a make or break year for Chris Henry Jr. the same way it is for, Devin Sanchez. While I think with Quincy and Mylan, I think there is a comparison to Aaron Scott that this might be a make or break year. So I don't know if it's it might be an apples to oranges comparison to even say that. I think it's more maybe we'll look back on this in a couple of years and whatever Chris Henry Jr.'s career turns out to be, and then we'll be able to make a decision of whether or not Ohio State essentially invested in the right guy between these 3.
Yeah, definitely more make or break for Mylan. Mylan's in his 3rd year now. Mylan, Quincy was hurt a lot of the year, and as I understand, Ohio State wanted Quincy back too. There was, it wasn't see ya. It was they would have liked to keep both those guys, but that's just kind of the reality of the world. So it's with Mylan, you have the conversation with what was it, UCLA, where Ryan was in the post-game press conference was we need more consistency, or maybe it was Rutgers, whatever game that was at the end of the year, where he was basically we got to see it basically from Mylan, and we haven't. We need to see it more consistently. So it's it's an interesting talking point because Stefan was saying, there's the long-term aspect of this that you gotta put together, because is it easier to hold on to somebody or go get somebody out of the portal? It's easier to hold on to somebody because they're already here. Their stuff is here. Their life is here, right? So you get the long-term aspect. It's a tough question of how would you map this out, because I think they probably look at Chris Henry Jr. as a 5-star that probably has to play right away. Frankly, let's say Chris Henry Jr. wasn't here. Are one of Quincy and Mylan still here? Probably, because, Ohio State would probably, I would probably say Quincy. I think Quincy would probably be the guy, because we talked about it before, we thought Quincy had kind of jumped Mylan and Quincy had just been hurt. And, that could have been somebody that played on the outside opposite Jeremiah. So I think you're right. I think we're just going to have to wait and see. It is a very interesting conversation. We touched on this with recruiting. If this is the world you want to live in with recruiting, that's totally fine. But if you're going to stack good player, you can't be surprised or all that upset when that good player looks and says, but there's another blue blood 4 hours away who's going to pay me what I want, and I'm going to go start. So I'm going to go do that. And you have to live in that world. And you have to exist in that world if you're Ohio State, and you have to exist in that world if you're Texas, or if you're Georgia or Alabama. You have to live in that world of you can recruit a 5-star and then a year later he goes, I'm not going to play here, see it. And I don't know. The timing of this is interesting too, because Chris Henry Jr.'s whole thing happened a month before the Quincy Porter thing. I'd be very, very interested to see what if signing day was January 10th? How does that all play out? With if Chris Henry Jr.'s thing is going on as Mylan and Quincy's thing is going on.
From the 419, if there was one thing to watch during this offseason, micro or macro, what would it be? So let's do 2 things. Let's do a micro thing and then a macro thing, Stefan, that people need to be paying attention to at Ohio State this offseason.
Like still to come this offseason or what we've done so far?
No, just like still to come. Like now that this is the roster. Like this, now we can do like spring practice stuff, like summer workout stuff, fall camp stuff.
Yeah. Macro, I'll go even outside of Ohio State. I'm curious to see what progress is made toward expanding the college football playoff this offseason, because it sounds like the Big Ten and the SEC could not be further apart in terms of what they want. And they're obviously the two. I started talking about it and then I started feeling myself get frustrated. So I don't want to go down that route. I just nobody wants a 2014 playoff. And the
Big Ten is wrong. Say it. Say it.
What did you say?
I said the Big Ten is wrong.
Yeah, no, the Big Ten is wrong, and it's frustrating because last year we're sitting in Vegas and we're being lectured on how the 16-team playoff is the move. We're all kind of like, okay, I kind of see this structure with the automatic qualifiers. Like I kind of thought that was the right move, and it's like you finally got the SEC to somewhat agree to your format, and now you're the one switching up trying to go to 24. It's like college football has the people who run college football sometimes have such an understanding of what their audience is asking for, and I think college football, maybe even more so than the NFL, has the most loyal audience. Like, college NFL fans do not donate hundreds and millions of dollars to their organizations so they can get their favorite quarterback. So it's like, I don't know, you don't even have to be like a big money booster to do that. Like, I don't know, when you go to an Ohio State football game and it's like, do you want to round up your concession stand cents to go toward NIL? I don't know if that's still a thing, but I think it was at some point to give to collectives. I know schools did that. It's like, I don't know, that's 75 cents you're not giving to the Browns so they can go out and sign Deshaun Watson, right? Like, it's
imagine that. Imagine if you were a Cleveland Browns fan and they traded for Deshaun Watson. And before they made the trade official, you were a part of the fan base. And so you're getting emails or notifications from the Cleveland Browns that are saying, hey, can you donate to the dog pound so that we can pay Deshaun Watson? Because if you donate and we get up to $230 million, we can make this trade to get Deshaun Watson. Right. It's asinine.
It sounds ridiculous. And then in college football, we just kind of nod our head and we're like, yeah, that's exactly what I'm going to do. Like, of course, I want my favorite team to be good. And it's like, okay, now everyone who runs this sport is going to try to make your life as miserable as possible. So that is, anyways. See, I got mad. I wasn't going to get mad. That's the macro thing of let's see what happens this offseason, because I'm kind of happy that we're staying at 12. I thought 2024 playoff, the first year with the 12 team, I thought it was good. It was obvious that the format needed some tweaks, and it came from an unforeseen place. Nobody thought that the ACC and the Big 12 were going to be so bad that Boise State got a bye, right? So it's whatever, that happened. They tweaked the format. I don't know. I get it. If you're an Ohio State fan, it sucks because you had the bye and you lost. Overall, I thought this year's college football playoff was pretty good. We had a few blowouts along the way, and we had some blowouts that maybe I don't think anyone Indiana, Oregon. If you could go back, that's still a matchup we would have wanted. Did we think Indiana was going to thump them? No, we didn't. No one expected that. But you still got two semifinal matchups that were supposed to be good. Most quarterfinal matchups were good, right? Indiana thumped Alabama, but we knew Alabama wasn't good. But it's going to happen where the 8-9, it happens in college basketball. You have the March Madness. I think it's the 8-9 game where you get to the second round, and the first seed or the one seed usually just thumps whoever the 8-9 is, because that's a bubble team from the SEC that probably isn't that good. So anyways, I'm interested to see what conversations are like this offseason, and if there is moves towards expansion. Expansion is going to happen eventually, whether it's 16, whether it's 24. I'm more so curious to see how quickly we get there, and that depends on how quickly these two sides can kind of see eye to eye. Micro level, I'll go back to something we talked about with the breakout players pod. I'm curious to see what happens opposite of Kenyatta Jackson at defensive end, right? Because Russoff from Alabama seems like an intriguing guy you got out of the portal, but Zion Grady, I'm very high on what he can do. Who wins that starting spot? And of course, they're gonna move around and take defensive tackles off the field and all that. Matt Patricia showed us, but who is that guy that kind of emerges at defensive end to be another pass rusher alongside Kenyatta Jackson, to be a real threat?
Yeah. Micro, there's a couple of different ways to look at it. I would say micro for me, we walk out there day one spring practice. We don't get to see a ton of spring ball, but we walk out there day one of spring practice. Who's at right tackle? Are they sticking with? Are they going to give Phillip Daniels the opportunity, or are they open to more? I am very curious about that. So whoever's at right tackle, I'm curious about that. That I guess is my micro. My macro sounds micro, but I promise you it's a bigger deal. When we watched Ohio State and we watch them in spring ball, and we watch them do some install. Like, here's the thing that I think goes under the radar about spring practice now with all of this transfer portal stuff. There's so much install. There's not a world where it's like, oh, hey, let's just, give the veterans time to kick their feet up. Like, would you love to give Terry Moore some time off and Earl Little Jr. some time off and Christian Allegro some time off? Yeah, probably. Do they need spring practice? They didn't at their last stops, but they probably do now. So there's a lot of install. And the thing that I'm curious about when we watch Ohio State's defense, how many defensive players have their hand in the turf and how many are standing up? Because I think, as we talked about on a pod like a week or so ago, I wonder if there is a kind of fundamental shift to Ohio State's defense coming with what we saw in their recruiting class, what we saw in their portal class. I wonder if this is the time where we start to see more 3 down front than we see 4 down front. So I think Ohio State's defense might be kind of making a shift here.
So I'll start with my micro. My micro is, how does Ohio State handle Jeremiah Smith this spring? That guy's played a lot of football. And I mean, it's not like with Garrett and Chris in 21 where it's like, yeah, you want to rest him, but also new quarterback. Or, 23, it was like, yeah, you want to rest Marv, but new quarterback. Like him and Julian Sand are going to be in year 2 together. He's your best weapon. So it's like, how do you handle him? One, in terms of workload, how much you're having him do, right? When they have that student media day appreciation practice, like I almost expect him to be doing just as much standing around and walking and watching and talking as we're doing. But how much is he in the slot? How much is he at X? How much is he at Z? Like it felt like year 1 was like, hey, JJ, go play X and go work off talent. And then year 2, it's like, okay, JJ, you have a better understanding of what we're doing here. Carnell's on the other side. We're going to start scheming some stuff up here. JJ's going to be the most experienced of these superstar receivers we've seen in terms of snaps going into his 3rd year, right? Because he's been a starter for 2 years already. That was not necessarily the case with Chris Olave heading into 2020 or Garrett Wilson in 21. Unfortunately, Jack Smith-Njigba, Mecca Buka, and Marvin Harrison Jr. going into their 3rd years, right? Because they all spent time in a backup role. JJ has never spent time in a backup role. Has he mastered this offense from a receiver standpoint so much so to where like it's more about where we want to put him, especially since we think Chris Henry might be good. We think the 2 transfers might be good. We think Brandon Ennis might take a step, but that's all unknown right now. And when you have a weapon like Jeremiah Smith, where you want him to probably get used to playing every single receiver position and moving all over the place and making sure that he and Julian Sands' chemistry is as good as it could possibly be, he also does not need spring practice. He's got an entire offseason and fall camp to do that. So I just think he's Ohio State's ultimate weapon. And I'm interested to see how they handle him through these first 15 practices. My macro is like kind of in line with yours, Stefan. Like it's more of a big picture conversation. It just isn't the Ohio State world. So the Big Ten has won 3 straight national championships. Michigan won it in 23, Ohio State in 24, and Indiana in 25. How many non-conference regular season games do you think they played against Power 4 teams?
The team that won it all?
Combined.
0.
The donut. And I do wonder what the impact of that is. Michigan played East Carolina, UNLV, and Bowling Green. And it was a thing that year. Like, Michigan didn't play nobody. Michigan didn't play nobody. Michigan didn't play nobody. And they went 15-0. Ohio State in 24 played Akron, Western Michigan, and Marshall. Now, granted, their Big Ten schedule had some guys on it, and also they had the whole Michigan looming over them, so they ended up with 2 losses that year. Indiana, like, it's been a thing for 2 years that Indiana don't play nobody. Old Dominion, Kennesaw State, Indiana State. And it's gotten to the point that Kirk Cignetti last year, Big Ten Media Days, was trolling the SEC with like, we were just making sure that we had an SEC type schedule because we got to play 9 conference games. Like, I don't know. What's the impact of that, especially when you pair that with Texas is upset because it feels like they scheduled a big-time non-conference game and it came back to bite them in the butt. We don't agree with it, but you can have that argument if you want to have it. And I am interested, whether it's asking Ross Bjork about it, asking Ryan Day about it, asking a bunch of different coaches about it this offseason, of like, I don't know. Sure, the Big Ten's winning national championships, but the teams who are doing it are not having to play big-time football games against non-conference opponents until December. And I'm wondering how that impacts things, especially now that I believe all 4 Power 4 conferences are playing non-conference games. And I'm wondering what the impact of that is.
Yeah. And I think What's interesting is Ohio State's maybe a glaring example of that in 2024, because if they did play a tough non-conference game and they lost it, they might not have made the playoff.
Right.
Michigan in 2023, that was still the 4-team era. So, like, if they had lost the big non-con game, they probably still would have gotten in because they ended up winning the Big Ten. They would have been a one-loss Big Ten team, and they would have had a win against Ohio State. So they probably still get in 2023. Indiana's case is obviously different because they went undefeated. But, like, yeah, I mean, it goes hand in hand with my thing of just, like, if they expand the playoff and there are automatic bids, then this doesn't matter, right? Because Texas gets in because they have, 2 SEC losses. They're one of the 4 best SEC teams, however it would have shaken up, right? Like, it doesn't matter the non-con games so much in terms of getting in. Now you're seeding and stuff like that, it'll matter. So yeah, all this stuff goes hand in hand, right? If the committee and these conferences make a decision that has automatic bids, then the future of non-con games is maybe stronger than ever before. Maybe the SEC and Big Ten are like, all right, let's do an SEC Big Ten challenge. Let's make this interesting. Let's sell tickets. Let's do something good here. If we're moving forward with automatic bids for the foreseeable future, then yeah, I think, I don't know, like Ohio State, I give props to them. They have not shied away from playing these big non-con games for the most part, and props to them. They're also very, I think, secure in what they feel like they have as a program. I don't know. Do you think Alabama is feeling a little bit insecure about right now what they have as a program? And they're looking at that home and home with Ohio State saying, yeah, freaking right, dude.
Probably.
Like, Kalen DeBoer ain't winning those games. We're not playing those games.
Yeah.
So, yeah, your thing and my thing go kind of hand in hand there.
Because even with the automatic quality, even if you don't have that, it's like there's 3 extra games that you don't have to worry about. They don't have to try. Michigan and Ohio State and Indiana had preseasons. They've created a preseason in college football. Because, I don't know, was anybody worried about Michigan losing to East Carolina, UNLV, or Bowling Green? I mean, we talked about those Akron, Western Michigan, and Marshall games and, like, dismissed them. And they got a bye week after 2 of them. We just kind of dismissed them. Indiana, the old Dominion game was weird. They only beat them by 13 points. But then they beat Kennesaw State 56-9 and Indiana State 73-0. So I'm intrigued by that of like, hey, it's hard to win in your conference. So like, what if you just had 3 games to like figure out what you were in a football game before you had to go into conference play, which is what the preseason is in the NFL. It's 3 games and maybe a 4th one if you end up playing in the Hall of Fame game that year where you can figure out what your team is. And it really, like, yeah, winning and losing you care because you're competitive, but like, it actually doesn't matter. Nobody's preseason record is relevant at all. Right? I mean, Gillis, you covered the Bengals. It was like a big deal that Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase and T. Higgins that one year were like not playing in preseason games. And when people were like, hey, man, did you think that impacted your start to the year? Because you didn't have 3 games where like you could focus more on figuring it out than whether or not you were going to win or lose. And so I am wondering, is there an AD who's paying attention to that? Hey, the Big Ten's winning national titles, but the teams that are doing it while not having to play anybody until conference play. And so that's 1 extra game where you can play your depth, where your star player is sitting on the bench in the 4th quarter and in the 3rd quarter. It's 1 less game that's consequential. And is there a correlation in a world where like everything matters? So that's I don't know. I'm interested to ask some people about that. And maybe I'm paranoid.
I am curious. First off, I think you say like, is there an AD out there that's paying attention? Yeah, there's an AD out there who's paying attention because think about how much money is going to change hands when like Ohio State plays Texas and Ohio State goes to Texas and vice versa. Money changes hands a lot. Like that's a part of this too. I am curious, like you're right. I am curious, like whether the mindset is like, we can't play anybody our first 3 games. We should be playing Mount Union, a high school team, and then some other D3 school. And like, we should just play the student body for that game and then just take the paycheck and take the win. I'm curious if there's an AD out there who's like, hell, we'll play a big team. We'll take the money, but we'll look at it like a resume point. Texas was complaining the whole time about it, and I thought it was kind of crybaby stuff. 1, because you didn't make the playoff because you lost to Florida, but 2, I don't know, win your games and you'll be fine. Ohio State was a beneficiary of beating Texas because if they lost to Texas, what would we have said their best win was during the regular season?
They'd also have 1 loss, so it wouldn't matter. They'd be in the playoff.
I understand. But you see what I'm saying? Like, it can help you also. Like, I think that people are missing half the argument when they say,
no,
well,
I'm saying that like, yeah, no, they're not, I don't think they're missing it. It's just, it's 1 extra loss they don't have to worry about taking. It's not about like, yes, if you just win your football games, it's not a problem, but like, you're not, Indiana's not like, doesn't have to worry about losing the Old Dominion, Kennesaw State and Indiana State. So it's less, it's one of those things of like, it can help you, but can it hurt you more than it can help you? And that's the consistent argument we're having here. Last question from Jordan in the 614. And Stefan, you actually answered Jordan directly, but I just think this is good advice. I think it's good advice. I've really been interested in getting into the podcasting world and learning more about how to break in, whether that's starting my own show or collaborating with others. I'm a huge Ohio State football fan and could talk about the Buckeyes for hours, game breakdowns, recruiting, hot takes, all of it. If anyone has advice, experience, or would be open to connecting, I really appreciate it. You're a podcaster, Stefan. You can share exactly what you said to Jordan. I saw it. I'm not going to take the words out of your mouth, but the biggest thing you've learned in having the pod, especially now that you're doing a pod that forces you to do it 5 days a week.
Yeah, I mean, number one thing I learned is you need some pretty good Wi-Fi, because there's been times where we're on the road, we're doing whether it's a hotel or I'm at my parents' house and they don't, for whatever reason, they don't have fiber quite yet. And it's like, all right, you better find some good Wi-Fi. But in all seriousness, what I had said to him was, like the most important thing, and this is something that, we would even learn in journalism school from a perspective of, writing as well. You want to find kind of your voice and figure out what you want to be as a pod. Like, how are you going to differentiate yourself? I think and I think maybe we're moving past this, but there was a stretch there in sports media where every single person was trying to be Stephen A. Smith, and they were getting in front of a microphone just screaming and trying to come up with hot takes and all this and that. And listen, like, I have a lot of respect for Stephen A. Smith because he carved out like his path and his audience through doing, that kind of stuff. And he is the best at doing it. He's a supreme debater. Like he's amazing at doing that kind of stuff. So like that is his voice. He is popular because he like honed in that skill. He is a master at doing that specifically. Not everyone can be that. So you got to find your voice, whatever that may look like. There's a million Ohio State podcasts. I bet if you listen to all of us, consecutively, if you went Austin and Berm, and then you listen to us, and then you listen to Bill and Doug, and then, whoever it may be, up and down the beat of listening to these different podcasts, they're all going to sound a little bit different from each other because I feel like everyone has kind of carved out the way that they, talk about things. And I think you see their personality, everyone's personality reflected a bit. Like, I don't know, I talk about ice cream and Doug talks about hot dogs. It's like, we're different in that sense, I guess. Right. So that's the most important thing is don't try to be like someone else. You got to carve out kind of what your voice is, whether it's writing or podcasting or whatever it is, and kind of find your avenue. And there's an audience for that. You'll find an audience for what it is that you're best at.
And, one of the things that I would add to that, I think finding your voice is obviously very important, like Stefan was saying. And like, that's kind of natural, just like being yourself, right? Like, I'm not going to get on here and act like somebody else. I'm going to make obscure movie references to like Friday Night Lights or to like Coach Carter. And I'm going to do that because I asked Stefan, I will do that when we're driving to Indiana. Like I'll do that in a random sentence. That's just me.
Yeah, we're not big fans of it then either, but he continues to do it.
I mean, look, I'm not going to look. So what's the Nick Saban quote? I'm not going to, so quit asking. I'm not going to stop. So quit asking. The other thing that I would say is like, find your lane, find what you can maybe provide that others are not. I know in the Ohio State sphere, it's obviously, very, very loaded because this is like the beat is like, I mean, we could play 11-on-11 football and have multiple subs on both teams. So I get it. There's a lot of people with outlets, but I think of a guy that he does an NFL offensive line podcast. His name is Brandon Thorne. How many NFL offensive line podcasts do you know of? Probably none if you didn't know that one, and that might be the only one, right? Like, how many podcasts do you know that do a particular thing? I tell that to, I've gotten emails from college kids every once in a while, and that's what I say. It's like, find your avenue to where, people can say, this is what I want to do. And okay, cool. What makes you different? What makes you unique from somebody else? If you want to start a Cleveland Browns podcast, okay, that's great. Good for you. How do you differentiate that between a personal diary that you talk into and publish versus I think I can provide something that people will enjoy hearing? I think I can provide something that people don't hear right now. It's everybody makes the joke about like three dudes sitting around having a beer going like, we should start a podcast before. But like, okay, stick to your voice, but do it in a way that maybe you think Browns fans would want to hear about. Do it in a way that, are Ohio State fans or whoever, that gives you a unique perspective and an idea on something. I tell this to college kids all the time. I went back and talked to the kids at the Post at OU one time, and I said, look, with all due respect, I don't care what you think about the Cleveland Guardians, because there are people who get paid to cover the Cleveland Guardians that will do that. Like, you're a college student. I would much rather hear your lane because you're an expert on this. You cover the volleyball team at OU. Write about the volleyball team. Like, what do you do best, and find your lane for it?
So here's what I just took away from Stefan and Andrew's answers. Stefan just told you the only podcast on the Ohio State beat he listens to. He just gave you his hierarchy. So if he did not say your name, if you're a beat person listening to this, you should fight Stefan. That's what I took from that. And that's all that matters. Like, the narrative is already written. You can try to dispute it all you want. And Gillis told us
I'll get at least one or two angry text messages, because not because of what I said, but because of what you said.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I'm spinning the narrative here. And Gillis just told us that he went back to his alma mater and told the future, don't dream big, dream small, because if you dream too big, I don't want you coming for my job.
Yep, that's exactly what I said.
Narrative is narrative. So here's my advice. For starters, I love the Ohio State sphere of things because there's just so much. It's been the epitome of there's something for everybody out there. There's obviously people like what we do where we're there every Tuesday. We're asking questions. We're trying to build sources and all that stuff, right? You got people who are maybe better at being insiders, maybe some people who are better at being personalities, people who are better at like the X's and O's of things. And then you've got the fan side of things, which I enjoy. I joke. The Lunatic Fringe is funny to me because I don't take any of this. Listen, we cover a child's game for a living. This is a dream job. This is not a real situation for me. This is awesome that I get to do this every single day. And so I like the fan podcast. I like the Twitter space, whose name is escaping me right now. I think is the best damn Twitter space or whatnot. I like what they do. Like, I'll check in and listen with, because I think everybody's voice matters in this. I think that's what makes it so cool. Is we're supposed to be conduit to the fans as sports writers. That doesn't mean that like we get to speak on their behalf all the time. They're allowed to get out there and like voice their frustrations and stuff. We'll just do it in a technical sound way, but because we have the training for it. But like anybody can go to Best Buy and buy a home microphone and talk about this stuff. So I like I like hearing everybody on the, whether you're on the beat or you're just a fan and you want to voice and you want to talk about your favorite team. I think both voices, everybody's voice is valued to me in some aspect of life. So I kind of listen a little bit of everything to see how people are talking about stuff. It's like, okay, like I think listening to the fan pod is like it tells you what you should care about in terms of what should you go in there and ask Ryan Day about. Instead of like trying to make up something in my head to ask Ryan Day about. It's like, okay, what does the fan want me to ask about? I think in terms of starting a podcast, proper preparation prevents poor performance. Like, be prepared when you sit down in front of a microphone, because that's the thing. Sports fans are not stupid, especially in college sports. It's too much going on. There's message boards. There's a million different people who think they know a million different other people. So if you don't know what you're talking about, the people who are listening to you are going to know that you don't know what you're talking about, and they're going to be very quickly turned off. So like, be prepared, have a point to what you say, be passionate about what you say. If you're starting it from scratch, know it's going to take some time to build it. And I'm speaking from a perspective of a guy who joined the podcast that had an established listening base, and I had to kind of rebuild the thing when the guy who was responsible for why we had the listening base left and went and started his own thing. So like, be patient with that. Don't get caught up in the numbers. Like, let it build organically, and before you know it, you'll blink and you'll be right back to where you were before the guy left, and it will be great about that. That's not a shot. I love Doug. Like, I owe a lot to Doug in terms of like how I cover this team. It's just like when he left, it was like, okay, all right, well, I'm out here on my own now. Got to figure it out. And I think Stefan and Gillis have been great in helping us rebuild this thing here. But those will be my things. Like, have a point, because there's too many people out here who have microphones just for the sake of having a microphone, and you don't actually say anything. Have a point to what you say. Be prepared with what you say, and be passionate. So the 3 Ps: point, preparation, passion. You start there, and then like, you'll organically grow an audience, and your audience will tell you what they want to hear from you. And like, to the point of like finding your own voice. I mean, I know it's always said, but like, it's hard to do sometimes. Like, yeah, just be yourself. And the people who are supposed to hear it, they'll hear it. And over time, it'll grow. So yeah, go to Best Buy, get you a Blue Yeti mic. Or that's not the mic everybody's using now. There's like the really, really expensive mic everybody's using now. Invest in it too. Invest in it. Don't really invest in it if you want it to be something. 614-350-3315, 2-week free trial, $3.99 after that. Good question. I like questions like that. That'll do it for this week. It's off season, so we got some things cooking in the pipeline here. Some people we might be in the verge of talking to. I don't want to say anything on the microphone yet, because I don't know, Stefan, if anything is final yet, and I don't want to say it. And then you're looking at me as soon as I press stop on the recording. You're like, why the heck did you say that? Nothing has been finalized yet, Stephen. Why did you put me on the spot like that? But we do have some things cooking up here for the next couple of weeks here that I think will be fun as Ohio State heads into winter workouts with spring practice. Before you know it, we'll be right around the corner. 614-350-3315, 2-week free trial, $3.99 after that. For Stefan Krajisnik and Andrew Gillis, I'm Stephen Means. Talk to you guys later.
Starting a business can seem like a daunting task, unless you have a partner like Shopify. They have the tools you need to start and grow your business. From designing a website to marketing to selling and beyond, Shopify can help with everything you need. There's a reason millions of companies like Mattel, Heinz, and Allbirds continue to trust and use them. With Shopify on your side, turn your big business idea into... Sign up for your $1 per month trial at shopify.com/special offer.